You certainly want to hear from them, but we'll hear from the old folks too. So, John, what if we start over there on your side?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hope Tom gets back soon. John Burns, on District 159 Southeast Georgia, Effingham, Scriven, Bullock counties. Pleasure to be back on this committee and look forward to it.
Well, we have District 144, all of Wilson, Fletcher County, and portions of the on Castle.
I'm Susan Holmes from Monticello. I have all of Jasper, most of Jones, a portion of Monroe, and Jackson and half of Butts County. I love promoting Georgia agriculture.
All right.
Good morning. I'm Patty James Bentley, House District 139, which includes Taylor, Macon, and Dooley counties, and the city of Fort Valley with Fort Valley State University.
Rick Jaspers, I'm House District 11, all of Pickens, part of Gordon, and a lot of Murray County. And I'm one of the few on this that's from North Georgia. I'm glad to be representing a big business in North Georgia.
I'm Regina Quick. I'm from Athens, home of the nation's finest school of agriculture. And my district also includes Jackson, Oconee, and Barrow.
You lose that at Auburn University real quick over there.
And that makes the praise all the more significant. I did my undergraduate at Auburn.
I'm Tom Kirby, District 114, Walton County. I also have parts of Barrett County, Gwinnett, and Rockville County.
Jay Roberts from Ocilla, Georgia. Represent Irwin, Ben Hill, Turner, a good portion of Tift, and part of Coffee County.
I'm Buddy Harden. I'm from Crisp County, represent Crisp, Wilcox, Pulaski, and part of Houston.
I'm Alan Black, and I'm sitting here thinking, this is the ag committee because everybody's spelling out counties on top of counties. Just represent one, maybe two counties, but I represent Southeast Georgia.
We, to be in compliance with House rules, we got to have one more than and we have to work on it. Right now, that's a little bit about that being in compliance. 21. And 11 would be half. We got half and 12.
I'm Darlene Taylor, and I represent Thomas.
But Robbie says approved of the House shall prevail. But that's in all not covered by committee rules. That's the dot that we'll change it. We got 12.
Dale Rutledge, District 109. I represent part of Henry County and portions of Rockdale and proud to be here.
And I'm Margaret Kaiser. I'm in Rutland. I think I'm the only urban legislator on this committee, but I actually requested to be on this committee. I live in Grant Park. I represent Atlanta Zoo and have lots of wind turbine, chickens, goats, all kinds of things in my neighborhood. But stand in my garage.
All right, thank you. Also we need to mention the really great help. Of course, you know who runs the committee, and Tom, the chairman Tom, always recognizes that, and that's Pat Harris, and we sure are glad. And we have our committee aide Tracy Atchison, and our attorney is Jeremy Ayers. Intern is Amber Painter from Dallas, Georgia. Before we get started, I notice we have a very distinguished visitor today, and just wondered if he had anything he'd like to say before we get started. Commissioner Black, you... Let's go ahead with that. That's on the seal that you're... Yeah, okay. Yes, sir.
Well, ladies and committee, thank you for us being here and working together on this finest committee. It's good to all come together for the right thing. And that's about feeding and clothing our people and doing right, not consumers of the state. That's what our job is. Let me Chairman, some of our staff here, first, two folks that you will see the most of, and we hope that you will rely on. They are very honorable. They've been around this place. They understand that they're here to serve you and make sure. You know, our one commitment to you is when we have something that's a business in this committee, there are no surprises. You'll know everything before it gets here, and if you still have questions, then it's our job to make sure that they're answered properly. Sidney Smith, our director of policy, leads our efforts over here, and we call on her morning, noon, or night. Martin Sullivan from Savannah. Martin is Sidney's deputy that helps me on some of the other. Just really kind of gets a good cover of consumer and farm background here with our staff, so it's you'll find them to be helpful. There's a lady that's new to the Capitol that's joined our staff for the last little while. My chief of staff kind of had to. I don't know if y'all ever met Joyce White before. She's the first time in the Capitol. Y'all be kind to her. We're so glad to have Joyce join our staff back in the fall. She has the work job in the building, and that's keeping up with me. So we've got a professional team that's ready to serve you, and that's what it's all about. So we're grateful. Mr. Chairman, when this process started for me, again, the early days, about 4 years ago, we get underway before 2010. I had a real interesting discovery one day. I love reading history. I love reading Georgia history to keep up with it. Some of y'all have kind of heard that before, but Chairman McCall and Bring it, maybe some other ones have not. Just had a discovery one day. Would some of you who, if you know the answer to this, don't bring this up. Maybe others don't. Do y'all know that Georgia actually has there's the Great Seal of the state of Georgia? What does it look like? I mean, it's right down. It's
on that page.
Good parts of it are on the flag. It may be even on your, on your lapel pin. It's got. All right, Virginia. It's
Wisdom, justice, moderation.
Yeah, it's got the arch that we have in Athens, but it's the and wisdom, justice, and moderation from the 8th grade. We would know that as what? The state's. That's what we call it, the motto. I was just researching that one day, and I stumbled upon this, and it's very interesting. We have Georgia's actually one of the states that has a double-sided seal. I think you may have part of the code section as well. It's real interesting. Three paragraphs. First paragraph says there should be a state seal, and it says how big it is, and it says that the Secretary of State should keep it. I have a little anecdotal story at the end of this. It's funny. After on inauguration day, two years ago. But paragraph 2, the first mention, says this. It says there should be on the sea, there should be a ship of war. Soldiers of the United States of America. And shall be taken on hogsheads of tobacco and cotton, or bales of cotton, which means, containers. And that should be emblematic of our state's forces. And it shall say there shall be a smaller vessel with the same, taken on the same, and that shall be emblematic of our internal trade. So there should be a man in the act of plowing, and there should be a small flock of sheep. I love the old language. It says they have different postures underneath the flourishing tree, and shall have inscribed thereon the motto: agriculture and commerce. Now, I think my favorite word in the whole Georgia Code is the next one. If you all look at it, it says, and then at paragraph 3, paragraph C, it says, and the device on the other side. And this is mentioned first. Now, I ain't gonna win the argument, but I still argue everywhere I go. This is from the state secret. It's mentioned first in the code, and it said, and the other interesting thing, it says it shall have, the arch and on the pillars, and it shall have the words, wisdom, justice, and moderation, not the mock. And we've changed over that during tradition over time, but this is over 200 years old. It was important when we were founded in our early days. It's still important today, and I think everybody on this committee knows it's an extremely important part of our future. Whether it's meeting internal needs, domestic markets, our export markets, and all the different things that we do. So Chairman Colvin seemed to be, he liked that story the first time I told it, and I think we've told the committee before, but we do have for you, we've taken this and we use it on everything we have, and it actually helps us tell the story. It's so important. So we've got a lapel pin for you. You have many competing interests and many competing lapel pins over the portions of us. But we hope there might be a place or two where you'd like to have it. Y'all all, many of y'all have all been faithful with that. It's just, again, and maybe it's not for help you. Maybe explain some of your committee work, and maybe that's a good story that will help you in a civic club. The more we tell it, the more we can educate our citizens.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, this on inauguration day, y'all remember it's classic. And we finished, and y'all know that deal, I can't remember exactly the order, but Kemp's got that felt box downstairs with that 2 1/4 inch. It really is that. That's not just an empty box. We were standing over here on the 3rd floor, waiting for families to come down and stuff. He's holding the box, and I just asked him, I said, "You ever looked in it?" He said, "Well, I glanced in it." And I said, Is that other side of that seal on the bottom? He said, "I don't know." Well, we stood down there at the top of the stairwell on the 3rd floor, and we flipped out the top one. I said, "Now don't drop everything. We'll be in trouble." So he held out. Well, that other, our side, is facing downward. So all you can see is the blank of the top. And we said, "How are we going to get it out of there?" So I confessed to pulling my pocket knife out, and we pried it out, and we decided, Black and Kemp, destroy the state seal. We could see the agency the next morning. We did get the thing out, and it's interesting because it is reversed. It is not, it's exactly backwards. Everything on that side of it is backwards. And I guess it's like you have to, as you're peering through a piece of glass, it would be on the back side. If you flip it over, it's backwards. So that's an interesting thing. If you ever get a chance to look at it, y'all get it show it to you. It's a lot of rich history of Georgia in that, man. Mr.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me. We look forward to being aboard the committee several times. Got some good stuff for you, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Black, and thank you for all you're doing for agriculture in our state, because it is still the largest industry in our state. All right, we need to adopt the committee rules, and you've got them there if you'd like to take a look at them, and then I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
Move to pass.
Have a motion, to have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And I'm going to go a little bit out of order. We do have a bill to be presented, Representative Epps, but I'm going to ask Dean Angle to come at this point. Dean Angle is the UGA College of Agricultural and Environmental Services Dean. He has a presentation for us this morning, and he needs to get back to school. So, yes, sir. So, Dean, if you will.
I appreciate that. I do have to get back to Athens and then have to be back on here this evening for a few other things. Let me thank you for all being on this committee. As you said, agriculture is the largest industry in the state. I was going to start out this morning by saying this is the best of times and the worst of times.
But if you opened up Growing Georgia today, that was their lead headline, so they've already stolen my starting point. One thing I also would refer you to before we get started, if I'm sure all of you watched the Super Bowl on Sunday night, and there was the advertisement from Dodge Ram truck about agriculture with Paul Harvey.
Great.
It's ranked as the #1 commercial that evening during the Super Bowl, but that was done by the FFA development director, who is Rob Cooper. Some of you know he used to work for the College of Agriculture and now works for FFA. So that was a special project of his, and anytime someone sends a link for that advertisement to a friend, Dodge Ram is donating, I believe, $1 to FFA, up to $1 million, and as of yesterday at 4 o'clock, they had already had 3.5 million likes on Facebook, and so they've got their $1 million. I want to talk to you a little bit about the past, present, and future of the College of Agriculture. As all of you know, and anyone particularly who's in private industry, I don't need to explain this to, it's been a difficult time, even in agriculture, state tax revenues, because they've been down. We've had a 28% budget cut in the College of Agriculture, and unlike the rest of the University of Georgia, we don't have any ability to raise tuition to make up for that. So while every other college dean, when you would ask them what's been the impact of the budget over the last 4 years, they would probably tell you it's been moderate at best. In agriculture and for the College of Ag, it's been a devastating budget cut. Again, 28% over that period of time. We've never complained about it. I've never threatened to fire all the policemen and the teachers first. I've tried to take a very systematic approach to prioritizing our programs, and we've been cutting from the bottom up. But I do want you to know that we are now cutting programs that are important to many people in the state, and I have nothing left that is easy to trim from the budget. I've got a couple positions open right now, the bull test in Calhoun, Georgia, a beef cattle specialist in Tifton. All of these positions are going unfilled, and I'm getting calls almost daily by these industries. And I can go down the list for almost every industry in the state where they're unhappy with the what we are no longer able to do. But we've made our way through these cuts, and I think we've done it as responsibly as possible. We have not had to lay off a lot of people. We have lost 400 people from the state payroll over this period of time. So when you look at the University of Georgia and they talk about the cuts that have taken and the number of employees that have been lost, just know that most of them have been from the College of Agriculture. So that's a bit of the brief history. Again, we've been trying to be responsible and do our part, and I think again we've minimized the impact on this great industry in the way that we have handled these budget cuts. But we are at a very difficult point right now, and we frankly do need to begin to replace some of our budget as the economy improves. Unfortunately, and as all of you know and can tell me, the economy is improving a lot slower than any of us would like, and I realize that the opportunities this year are not going to be what we were hoping for, but we're still hoping for at least a bit of relief, and I want to talk about what some of that might be. First, I want to pass around our agricultural forecast booklet. A number of you in the room have already been to our ag forecast, but please take another one. The good news here is that if you're growing pecans, it is the best of times right now. Yields were great last year. Prices were great. If you're growing peaches, they were not the best of times. And if you look at the Growing Georgia headline, it was about peaches and pecans. But most other things in the state are doing very well right now. Cotton, peanuts, beef cattle, poultry is not doing so well right now, Representative Jaspers. But that's probably the one major segment of the state that, because of high input costs, still is under some duress. But we're starting to even see poultry prices come around a bit. So I'm hopeful that within the next year, all of our commodities in the state can be doing well. But we've got storm clouds all around us in agriculture. You know, these are not just storm clouds on the horizon. They're surrounding us right now. Input costs are going up. Federal regulation in particular is having some really serious impacts on our ability to be productive in the state of Georgia. There's always, China is the big unknown factor in all of this. They can jump into a market at any point in time and raise or lower prices, and so a lot of that is out of our control. But as of today, things are pretty good, and our farmers are actually making a fairly decent profit right now. So let me pass around, and please take a copy of our agricultural forecast. There is some great information in there. You might look at those commodities that are important to your particular district. Also, I'm going to pass out an agricultural snapshot. A lot of you use these pretty regularly. Just call me. We can get you as many of these as you want. This is a very short and easy to understand summary of the state's largest industry. So I will also send these around. And then lastly, and probably, at least in my opinion, most importantly, I also like to send around our budget request for the coming year. And let me explain what this is. We do this every year. I've been the Dean of Agriculture for 8 years now, and each year we produce this budget request. We distribute it to as many people as are willing to have it put into their hands. And it's a bit of a wish list. We understand that, but it's a wish list for a particular reason. Agriculture is a very diverse industry. I came from the state of Maryland, where we grew chickens and things to feed chickens. If you look at that snapshot, we have almost 100 commodities in the state, over $10 million each. So it's a very, very diverse and complicated state. So when I was in Maryland, we needed a lot of chicken scientists, and we needed some people to work on grains and corn and soybeans, and that was about it. But in Georgia, we need people working on blueberries and peaches and energy crops, and it just goes on and on and on. Watermelons in your particular region. We need experts in all these areas because there are continually developing problems. So let me, before I get to our budget, let me explain a couple things that we are trying to do. We're the number 4 college of agriculture in the country, as ranked by the National Research Council. Unfortunately, our rankings are probably going down right now because of the cuts that we've had to make, although many other states are also having similar problems, so we all may be sinking a little at the same level right now. But we're a great college, but one of our biggest problems is our infrastructure. We manage 17,000 acres of land, and my college manages more buildings than the rest of the University of Georgia combined. Each one of these buildings has a cost associated with it. We've never been properly funded by the state of Georgia to maintain these buildings. And this goes back long before just about any of us were born in this room. It's a historical issue that, frankly, no one can explain, but it is what it is. Because of that, we have to pay our electric bills. We've got to pay for our janitorial services and the lawn care where it's needed. And so we skim off money from the top of what most people would consider to be agricultural programming simply to pay for these buildings. And we also allow them to deteriorate to some extent. When I'm forced to make a decision, do we hire someone to work on peanuts, or do we allow a leaky roof to continue? Often the pressure from the peanut industry is such that I'm going to hire that peanut entomologist and not fix that leaky roof. And so our infrastructure has been deteriorating just continually. It's in very poor shape. Nowhere near reflects a number 4 college of agriculture in the country. Just drive to any of our facilities, whether a farm or our Griffin or Athens campuses, and you'll see what I mean by our poor quality facilities. We are trying to manage our infrastructure in a way that I think is responsible. We're selling land. Many of you know that we have sold our plant sciences farm. The good news is it was worth $3 million. We sold it for $15 million. We had a buyer who was just happy with agriculture and wanted to give back. And in many ways, it'll be a donation on his part. We're buying another farm, a smaller farm, close by for $2 million. So we will have some money left over. With that money, and by the way, the farm that we are buying is called the Iron Horse Farms. For those of you who are University of Georgia graduates, you may have spent some untoward time down at the Iron Horse at some point of your academic career, but we will be responsible for the Iron Horse and the land that surrounds that, and that will become our new plant sciences farm. But we will use the profit, if you can use that term in in public terms. We'll use that to reinvest in our other infrastructure around the state to try to build up that and fix the leaky roofs and push down the buildings that are falling down. I was also, excuse me, asked by Chairman England, Chairman Bullock, before he retired, to conduct a space inventory of all of our space. And what he told me was that you will not have the same amount of space going into the future as you have in the past. And I think we all understand that the public wants smaller government, so we are downsizing. And so our M&O request is changing as we are downsizing. We spent last summer conducting that building survey. It is now complete. If any of you are interested in that, we can share that with you. But what it shows is that we will be reducing our infrastructure by about 15% over the next couple of years as buildings either fall down or deteriorate, so that we can push them down at that point. We will not be rebuilding about 15% of our facilities. Now, this is not nearly going to cover all of our infrastructure, and so I've been working with Chairman England over the last couple of years to help with some bond packages for the College of Agriculture, and he, particularly working through him, there has been $4 million available every year through the House bond package to help with our farm infrastructure. There's been $1 million per year for equipment. Many of our combines, tractors are 20, 30 years old right now, and we certainly have equipment that many farmers today would not be using. So $1 million a year for that, and then you can never leave out Rock Eagle 4-H Center, and so there's $2.5 million for new cabins at Rock Eagle. Let me just make one quick point about our 4-H programs. So they are the premier 4-H programs anywhere in the country. They are, our Rock Eagle camp is the top 4-H student youth camp anywhere in the world. It is a phenomenal facility. But all of our 4-H camps around the state actually make money. They're profit-making centers. I talked to Representative Quick yesterday, and one of the questions she had for me was, what are you doing to try to generate money through your infrastructure? And I forgot to mention this to you, but all of our 4-H camps, except for Rock Eagle, actually make money. And we use that money to distribute around the rest of the college. Now, Rock Eagle doesn't make money, partly because the costs are so significant, but also over the last 5 years we've had some problems there. There was some discussion of closing that camp at one time. We lost a lot of private business. Was it 5 or 6 years ago now? Many individuals from New Orleans, after the hurricane, moved up to Rock Eagle and were living there for almost 9 months. We lost lots of business during that time. And by the way, we were never properly reimbursed by the federal government for that. Oh, thank you. And then the general economy, as the whole conferencing economy has wound down during the recession, we've also lost some business. But with new cabins being constructed there and adults willing to come back to that camp, we have a plan to become profitable in the next 2 years. And so I think we're well on track to even get our most significant 4-H camp back into good shape. So we are doing everything we can to generate revenue where we can. My college typically leads the University of Georgia in private fundraising. We're not going to this year, but for the last 5 years we have, and I think next year we're actually on track to get back into the lead again. We also bring in typically more money than any other college at the university in research contracts and grants, which, as you might know, there is some overhead associated with that returns back to the college to run our other programs. So we're doing everything we can to generate revenue to try to minimize the need for state funds. But nonetheless, we still need state funds to run our programs. We are a very large college again. Before the recession started, we were getting about $100 million of state funds in the College of Agriculture's budget. Now you can do the math and see how much money we have lost during that period. Our total budget is around $200 million. So that includes some federal money, some local money, and then federal contracts and grants on top of that. There's also a small amount of money for our sale. Not only do we sell books through Extension, but we sell beef cattle, and once in a while we'll sell chickens, and we sell honey and other things that we can do to raise a small amount of money. But having said all that, we are still looking to the state to help us out with our budgets. And so let me go through now what's in our FY14 budget request. Again, we're realists. We understand what the budget is and what it looks like. Each year we will have a list of positions included in that request. I don't take a position on if any of these are important or not important. Rather, they are what the industries have told us are important to them. And so they'll be talking to you, they'll be lobbying you to try to get any of these put into the budget. Often this has happened on the Senate side, and we'll just see where that goes. But I want to let you know by putting them on this list that they are important to us. Secondly, there's a request for some extension agent positions. We've been devastated in extension through the budget cuts. They have particularly hit hard on that side. This is where the rubber meets the road for local programming. And the really sad part of all of this is because we have lost so many tax dollars, the county is no longer stepping up to provide the matching dollars, and we're leaving about $3 million of local funding on the table because of the state cutbacks. The big kahuna in all of this is maintenance and operation. I've talked about that earlier, and the college being underfunded in that. We were making some progress in that with Governor Perdue, and then the budget cuts hit, and it all was given back during that time. And then there's a couple other smaller things on there, but really positions and M&O. There's one other thing I did want to mention that's not on that list, and that is our automated weather network. This is a very important system to the state. We have weather stations all around the state. It's been funded by contracts and grants for a long period of time. It was held essentially in a different college. It's now in the College of Agriculture, and what we found is not properly funded. And so at some point in time, we're going to need some help. We've gone to all the commodity commissions. They're willing to do their part. We've gone to the EMCs and Georgia Power. They've provided enough, it's not adequate in my opinion for how they use this system. We've got enough contracts and grants to carry us forward for the next year, so it's not an immediate issue, but it's going to come up next year or the year after that. Right now, I just don't have a good solution. I can't tell you whether they're the trial lawyers, the power companies, or the peach and blueberry growers of the state. They all rely on that weather data to make crucial decisions. So I'll just stop there, and I know I ran a little long, but I really do appreciate all of your time, and I also want to end with my sincere appreciation for all of you serving this great industry. It's the largest industry in the state, as you heard, but it's also growing quickly. It's one of the fastest growing industries in Georgia, and it's going to continue to need University of Georgia help to make that happen. So thank you very much.
Dean, thank you so much for being with us this morning and for bringing that. And please come back and visit any time. Keep us up on what is going on there, and I know you will. Appreciate all you do.
Thank you very much.
I think we had a couple of members come in that weren't introduced during it, and they were Representative Dukes and Floor Leader Amy Carter. Would y'all just introduce yourselves? We've got so many new members on the committee. We're kind of doing that.
Amy Carter, representing Lowndes, Brooks, and Thomas.
Representative Dukes, representing Darling, Baker, Miller, and Seminole counties.
And I apologize, Chairman Carter. All right. Representative Epps, I believe, has a bill, House Bill 101.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a guest with us from the Department of Public Health, Mr. David Main, and he has a fellow worker with him. Is that?
Scott Ulick is our environmental health director.
All right. Oh, excuse me. I didn't realize it. But what we have with House Bill 101, Mr. Chairman, is really a collaborative effort between our Department of Public Health, Commissioner Black's office, and of course Jeremy has been instrumental in helping us address the situation I think a lot of us have come to realize in the last couple of years, dealing with our nonprofits and food service permits for that, and they helped us draft what I think is a hopeful resolution to this, and David and Ulick will help us navigate any technical issues you might have, or any confusion or cloudiness that I might bring to the subject as we move forward. But you know, our current law basically requires those entities selling food to get their permits either from the Department of Agriculture or the Department of Public Health. Over time, our General Assembly has carved out exemptions from permitting requirements. As a lot of you recall, even last year before this committee, we had a bill that exempted sorghum syrup bottlers from needing permits, which passed out of this committee and eventually passed the General Assembly. HB 101 in its form applies only to food service establishments that are permitted through the Department of Public Health, and not food sales establishments. The food sales establishments are permitted through the Department of Agriculture. So it was in the collaborative and unified effort with the Department of Public Health, since it is the agency responsible for the enforcement of food service establishments, that we were able to bring this forth. You know, current law already exempts food service establishments that are part of a fair or a festival which is sponsored by a nonprofit or a governmental entity and lasts no more than 120 days. This bill will allow food service establishments operating at these events to do something on a short-term basis. Basically, these short-term events put on by nonprofit organizations won't have to go through the expensive and cumbersome permitting requirements. Give you an example. Right now, a person running a hot dog stand at a weekend church function or a Relay for Life event would likely need a permit. But through this bill, these vendors would likely be exempt from getting that permit. Also under this bill, an exemption is there for the for-profit food services, but if they are a part of this event, they simply must meet the sponsorship requirement by a nonprofit or by a governmental entity, and of course 120 days at most time limit. Section 2 of this bill allows a county or municipality to delegate its permitting authority for food service activities, you know, to the local health department or local boards of public health. So that basically is it. One important item is that under Section 2, no fees shall be charged to any organization for the issuance of such permits, as long as those organizational structures meet the qualifying 3 avenues: sponsored by a political subdivision, or by an organization that meets the Internal Revenue Code of 501c, lasts 120 hours or less, and when sponsored by such organizations, is authorized to be conducted pursuant to a permit issued by the local municipality or county in which it is conducted. That's our basic bill. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Do we have any questions? Representative Jaspers.
Thank you, Representative Epps. Just want to make sure, so when we all go home, we haven't sprung a trap, that Saturday's 4-H and FFA Hog Show in Jasper, they had a place where they sold food. People brought food to sometimes sell and to give away. Does this in any way make them have to have any type of permit?
To my knowledge, no. But David, do you want to address that in a clearer term, or Dr.?
Any kind of food sales, people bringing baked goods, stuff like that, come under the Department of Agriculture, and they haven't been required a permit for that. This deals really with 1 and 2 day for nonprofit food service and food sales. The problem is we have some nonprofits that aren't allowed access to those regulations. They're now being brought under health department regulations that are based on a 14-day for-profit temporary event. So for what you're doing that, it's going to be up to the local city or county government to determine if there's a food service component. It would be up to them to determine whether they need to issue a permit or not under that nonprofit category.
Okay, just to keep following up with it. So when the Tate Community Association, we cook barbecue, they sell the plates for $7 on Friday, March 18th or whatever it is. Will they have to go to the, we're saying they will have to have a permit through the county board of health or whoever the city or county delegates.
Right, the way it's set up right now, the city or county government is authorized to cover those events if they want to. Some of them don't want to. What we have said is if you don't want to, we'll be glad to do it for you if you want us to do it. The law doesn't really call for the health department to do anything except provide food safety education. So in order to reach an exemption, a permit has to be issued. It's simply to protect someone who might want to set up on a street corner on a routine basis in competition with other business. He's not really nonprofit. It's not going to be 120 hours or less. So the event you're talking about, if you have it on, the reality is right now, no one's involved with your event. No one really wants to be involved with that event because it's in a local community on your property. It's events that are advertised and set up off-site and in parking lots around the city square and things like that. That we have a lot of people coming in that really this law pertains to.
I guess what I'm, in my line of thought is that some counties, cities too, tend to take something and take it and run with it. And I'm very aware of that. And that's my worry with this is will a over exuberant or enthusiastic county board of health with this start coming after or requiring a permit for a consent?
Because right now, and it goes
Okay.
to the health department, could become involved with your event from the aspect of being a food service establishment because you haven't reached the exemption requirement.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is prevent that from happening so that if the health department does want to get involved, they really need to talk to the city, county government. And then their involvement could be limited to food safety education, not really inspecting and trying to shut down an establishment, just making sure that event organizer understands there are some certain provisions they need to be aware of in order to protect the people that are going to be coming to their event.
Okay.
So that's really what we're trying to do, get it out of the food code and into this nonprofit food protection provision, which is very flexible with what can and cannot be done.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
As I read this bill, it says that any nonprofit conducting an activity lasting less than 120 hours would be exempt.
They'll be
Blanket.
exempt from being called a food service
Right.
establishment, which would be under the restaurant, mobile food catering regulations.
As in the other regulations that might be applied to, or requirements.
Regulation is what's in law right now, which is the next code section, which is nonprofit food sales and food service. So you already have laid out some basic food safety requirements for these kind of events.
Is there any other provisions in the code that would require them to get some sort of permit approval from anyone?
No, there's nothing that would.
Okay, that was the way was my interpretation. I want to hear y'all say that. All right, thank you.
Okay, Representative Bentley.
As I mentioned earlier, Dooley County is one of the counties that I represent, and every year they have this big pig jig festival that lasts about 2 or 3 days, I believe. And there's a lot of food vendors there. So under the current law, can you explain to me what is it they required to do right now and what you're proposing, how would it actually affect the pig jig festival?
Well, I doubt your question is being affected right now because we're probably applying the nonprofit provisions because I haven't had any complaints from Dooley County about it.
Okay.
So what's happening is they're treating your event under the nonprofit law right now.
Mhm.
Means they're checking your vendors from basic food safety provision, but it's the event organizer that's really responsible, not the health department.
Okay.
So that's probably how that's how most events are being handled. We just have a few health departments, that's what the law says this, and we're just trying to kind of correct that so that they can be handled in a more fair manner.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other question? If not, I entertain a motion do pass.
Move to pass.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Let me make one announcement. The Georgia Agribusiness Council is having a legislative breakfast in the morning and at 7:15 at the Freight Depot, and they invite all members of the Agriculture Committee to be there. And if there's nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourned.
So done.